All right, here we are again in the sad position of the elderly jiu-jitsu practitioner. So it's a Wednesday evening. We have two classes on Wednesday evenings here at Sendai Jiu-Jitsu Academy. I was hoping to do both, and after the first one, I don't think that would be a good idea. So here we are. I'm going to take a break now, do some stretching, cool down a bit, watch the class, and go home. So I think it's better to have come to class and survived and maybe be able to come to class tomorrow than to, push on, do the second class, maybe get hurt and so on. So it was pretty tough rolling today. So had 3 rolls, and they were kind of, a bit harder than I wanted to go. But I did have a happy discovery. So in the third one, I was getting smashed a bit, bottom side guard. And I managed to pull off a nice sweep. So it was all about kind of feeling where my opponent was, where his center of balance was, and just feeling that moment when he's sweepable and just actually sweep it. So I was really happy about that. And I think this is really important in jiu-jitsu, to find these little wins. So even on a day like today, when, things didn't really go my way and it wasn't super fun, but I found something, I practiced something, and hopefully that's going to turn into a skill in the future. And today I wanted to talk about training jiu-jitsu in Japan. So I've mainly trained here. This is my main club. I started at this club. This is where I train every week. But I have dropped in gyms in Singapore, in Germany, in Spain, in Estonia, and in the UK. And one thing that I really like about training in Japan is that it's surprisingly informal over here. So, you'll read stuff on Reddit about gyms where, everyone has to bow and bow on the mat, bow off the mat, line up in belt order, and, you can't drink while the training sessions are going on. All this kind of like old school Japanese style kind of formality. Judo training in Japan is still like that. But Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, maybe because it's an import into Japan, even though it seems really Japanese, it was actually imported into Japan back from Brazil. So, originally Maeda took Judo and Jiu-Jitsu to Brazil. And then, supposedly the Gracie family, played with it and augmented it and then brought it back. And it came back into Japan. And our club actually is affiliated with Hickson Gracie. So, there's an interesting little thing. But basically training in Japan, it's pretty informal. There's not a lot of formality, like we'll shake hands at the beginning. If you're late, you go and say hi to the instructor before you start. But, you can show up anytime. No one cares if you're late or if you leave early or, if you just show up for rolling or whatever. It's a club. We pay to train here and we're all mostly adults here. And so I really find that quite nice. And of course, jiu-jitsu in general, all over the world, is super friendly. I think it's the physical contact, I call it combat hugging. And it is, it's kind of, you hug and then at the end of the class, you got all these kind of adrenaline and happy pheromones going. And it's just, you feel good at the end of a good jiu-jitsu session. And it's super friendly. So if you are in Japan, I do recommend looking at, seeking out a jiu-jitsu club, dropping in. Make sure you contact them in advance. Clubs here don't like people showing up unannounced. But if you contact them and say, you'd like to join as a visitor, sometimes there'll be a fee, sometimes there won't be a fee. Most gyms can rustle up some English. So like our instructor, if there's an English speaker, he'll do the classes bilingually. So he'll do it in Japanese and then he'll do it in English. And even if the instructor can't speak English, one of the students will be able to help you out. So Japan is a good place to train jiu-jitsu. I would really recommend that. I think the age here is a bit older. So when I was in the UK, I noticed everyone seemed to be in their 20s, teens and 20s and like really hard, young, strong people. Japan, the age tends to be older. So a lot of people have done judo when they were younger and then they came back into this later on in life. So 30s and 40s is probably the most common ages here. Weirdly, the biggest groups of our students seem to be police, so police officers, military, entrepreneurs and self-employed people, maybe because they have time in the day to train, and students, so especially judo competitors who cross-train with jiu-jitsu to work on their ground game. But so just to wrap it up, Japan is a great place to train. It's not formal at all. It's very friendly. And normally it's quite English friendly as well. So as long as you give the clubs a bit of notice, you should be able to join as a visitor. All right. See you in the next one.